Well, I want to thank everybody for coming for this press conference on the abortion drug mifepristone. The Supreme Court ended Roe, but the FDA is allowing mifepristone to override state pro-life laws. The Supreme Court's 2022 decision in Dobbs overturned Roe v. Wade and restored to the people and their elected representatives the authority to set public policy that protects unborn human life. But in the months surrounding that decision, dozens of states moved to strengthen the protections for the unborn, with roughly a dozen states, including my home state of Louisiana, putting comprehensive pro-life laws in place. And those laws, recognized as constitutionally permissible under Dobbs, have since been effectively undermined by the FDA's continuation of the Biden-era policy governing mifepristone. I mean, the numbers tell the story. In 2024, an estimated 1,050,660 abortions were performed in the U.S. healthcare system. Legal abortions, including mifepristone abortions in states where they remain permitted. But in addition, the Society of Family Planning estimates that at least 76,310 abortions occurred through telehealth prescriptions mailed into states where unborn life is protected. That brings the estimated total of abortions in 2024 to roughly 1.1 million. And these are just estimates. The true numbers are likely higher. Further evidence comes from the We Count Project, which estimates that by the end of 2023, approximately 8,000 mifepristone prescriptions per month, nearly 100,000 per year, were being mailed from pro-abortion providers in pro-abortion states into pro-life states, effectively circumventing those state laws that were recognized by Dobbs. Meanwhile, the FDA is acknowledging that it's reviewing the current REMS for mifepristone, but that review is now dragged on for months. The time for bureaucratic delay is over. It's time to respect the rights of states to protect the unborn. The American people can and should weigh in on this, and they can make their voices heard by texting LIFE to 67742 and signing the petition calling on the FDA to act. I'm holding this press conference in part with coordination with Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who has been very outspoken on this. In fact, prior to Christmas, led a letter of 51 Republican senators calling for the revoking of the approval of mifepristone. Senator Graham?
Worthy cause. To those who wonder, the pro-life cause is alive and well in the Republican-controlled House and Senate. And we're going to speak up, and I've been talking about killing people for 4 days, so I'm look forward to talking about saving some lives here. Bottom line is, intellectually, if you believe this is a state issue and it doesn't have a place in the national dialogue, I disagree with you, but let's assume for a moment that's the right model, that the states can decide. Well, here's the problem. The federal government is allowing a chemical abortion pill to be sent through the mail that wipes out every state unborn protection law in the land. You can't have it both ways. You can't say it should be a state issue and sit on the sidelines while the federal government, through an agency, is sending the pill that undercuts everything people at the state have worked for, like in my state. So get on with it here. You can fix this by going back to the first Trump policy. I think that fixes it, right? Let's do it. The pro-life community is not asking too much of Republican administrations in Congress to repeal the Biden policy. I think that's why we got elected. So it's time now, folks, to repeal the Biden policy, a Biden policy that undercuts the states' rights approach, because the Biden policy would allow the abortion pill to be sent through the mail regardless of what the state law is, effectively destroying every pro-life law in the country at the state level. We can simply fix this if we have the courage to do it. So what are all of us telling the administration? You've been a great pro-life president, Mr. President, It's now time to deal with this issue.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Appreciate your leadership on this. This is a collective effort of House and Senate pro-life leaders as well as the state leaders. And this is the issue, is the states. And today I'm grateful that Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill, who is a co-plaintiff in a lawsuit against the FDA for removing the in-person dispensing requirement for mifepristone, is here. General Murrill.
Thank you, Tony. I want to thank Senator Cassidy for his leadership in conducting the hearing and the Help Committee this morning so that we could talk about some of the problems that have been created by the Biden administration's lessening of REMS protocols. They reduced those protocols to take away an in-person physician requirement, dispensing requirement, and then they did that specifically with the avowed purpose of facilitating and encouraging people to send those pills by mail, even to states where it is illegal. And so what they did was violate federal law with the purpose of facilitating people to come out and violate our state laws because they disagree with the political preferences that our state elected to enact through our duly elected representatives in our legislature on the issue of abortion. And I would like to emphasize that in Louisiana, this is a bipartisan issue. Our laws are overwhelmingly voted for and adopted and led by bipartisan coalitions and frequently by Democrats, female Democrats, who lead on this issue because they are devoted to protecting life and protecting women in all the ways and supporting their choice to be able to have their babies and not be coerced into abortions. Rosalie Markozich, who is one of the cases in Louisiana, we issued an indictment a few days ago against the doctor in California, Remy Coito, who sent the prescriptions that were used to coerce Rosalie in her abortion. We have the other doctor that we've indicted through West Baton Rouge District Attorney Tony Clayton, who is also a Democrat, involved a mother who coerced her 16-year-old daughter to have an abortion. And in that case, there was a documented history of severe physical abuse from the mother against the daughter. These are not unique cases. They're not made-up cases. This hearing that Senator Cassidy conducted today, despite the efforts of the Democrats to change the subject and make this about some kind of national abortion ban, is not about a national abortion ban. It's about validating Dobbs and preventing other states from nullifying the legislative policy choices that have been made by our states and facilitating the illegal, unethical, and dangerous drug trafficking of abortion pills into our states without any medical oversight whatsoever. Anybody can get these pills on the internet. They don't check. There's no verification, and there's no human contact. I don't know of any state where that is ethical medical conduct, and it's illegal in many of our states, and we will continue to pursue this. We will continue to try and hold the people responsible, all of the people responsible who are facilitating the nullification of our laws, and I want to thank all of the people who are standing behind me for continuing to advance and to encourage HHS to quickly revoke the rule that is helping to facilitate this kind of illegal conduct.
Thank you, General. Predominantly, it is Republican states that have these pro-life laws protecting the unborn, and they're the ones that are being undermined by this Republican administration and this policy, and it does need to change. Senator James Lankford has asked the EPA to actually investigate the environmental risk of mifepristone. He comes from another pro-life state of Oklahoma. Senator Lankford.
Tony, thanks for your leadership on this and for all of you that came out today to be able to speak out, and for all of you that came out. We just believe children are valuable. I think life is beautiful. Every single child is valuable. I don't see one child that's disposable and one child that's valuable. I believe all children are valuable. That's the passion that we have in Oklahoma, to be able to speak out on and to say, let us honor kids and be able to honor every single child. But what's happening right now on the national level is abortion drugs are being mailed into my state to go around state law to facilitate the death of children in my state. It's not unethical for us to be able to just stand out and speak out and to say, we want children to be honored and valued, to be welcomed into the world, but to also be respected in this process as well. So we're speaking out on this. We are challenging HHS and we're challenging the administration to do what the administration did during their first term. That was to say, you've got to have a doctor's appointment to be able to get access to this drug. This drug, contrary to how the abortionists talk about, is not as safe as Tylenol. I hear that myth all the time thrown around. Well, these drugs are as safe as Tylenol. They're as safe as Tylenol. Let me make this very clear. If you use mifepristone according to label and use Tylenol according to label, there is an 8,000% chance difference that you will end up in the emergency room using mifepristone according to label and using Tylenol according to label. 8,000% higher risk using mifepristone. This is not as safe as Tylenol. This is a drug that takes the life of every child, so there is always a death that's involved in this drug, but is also incredibly dangerous for the mom as well. We think that should require a doctor to be able to connect with, to be able to get access to this drug. And in my state, we're going to just say all children are valuable as well in the process. So we're speaking out on this, challenging the administration, we're challenging HHS and FDA to live up to our values. And if we're going to have states, the ability for states to make decisions, which is what the Supreme Court has said, allow the states to be able to make the decisions from there, to be able to honor and value every single child. Tony, thanks for your leadership in this.
Thank you, Senator Langford. Appreciate your consistency and courage on this issue. I also want to recognize and thank Senator Bill Cassidy from my home state of Louisiana. I've known Senator Cassidy since he was a teaching doctor at our public health system. But he, as chairman of the Help Committee, he has put a spotlight on this. And I'm grateful for the hearing he had today, drawing attention to the need for the change in the policy. Senator Cassidy.
Thank you, Tony. Tony mentioned that I'm a doctor. And what I found is that people are trying to make this clinical in a way that is bad, because they're trying to pretend, as Senator Langford said, that this is no different than a Tylenol. No, our hearing today was to inform people this is quite different than Tylenol. Aside from the child that dies, there is a risk of complications of the mother's part, that the complications which can be severe, particularly the fact that the pill is being prescribed to women who are beyond the 10-year limit as to when it should be taken. Women are taking this in the 20th week of their pregnancy, and they're not supposed to take it after the 10th week in their pregnancy. And so that brings me to the next point. As a doctor, I think it's essential that there be human contact before the pill is prescribed, that the doctor have a chance to speak to the woman and make sure that she understands that this is an abortion. She's going to lose her child, because some women, frankly, under pressure, don't quite comprehend what that means, that there are potential complications, but also to make sure that she's not being coerced. And that'll bring me to my third point. We have to treat folks like humans. Right now, you're going to hear that women are being literally coerced to take this. Liz Murrow did a great job in the hearing speaking about folks who are being coerced. I talked to Tony Clayton last night, the prosecuting attorney in Poincapie Parish, of a young girl, 16 years old, who was going to have a gender reveal party, and instead her mother forced her to take this pill. Now think about that. Think about the humanity of this situation. I can't put it as well as Tony, but we can all comprehend that. You go from a gender reveal to a child born in the toilet. We have a need to inform our fellow citizens to go back to that in-person visit. And I join the call, if you will, for Commissioner McCarry and HHS Secretary Kennedy to mandate that once more. Why? Because the humanity of so many people depend upon it. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your persistence on this. We have two House members joining us today. This was primarily focused on the Senate, but the House has been advocating for the policy to be changed as well. Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, Congressman Marlon Stutzman of Indiana, both have signed a letter to the EPA requesting an investigation into the environmental impact of mifepristone and called for the review of mifepristone to be expedited. So first, Congressman Chip Roy and Marlon Stutzman.
Well, thanks, Tony. I want to thank the Family Research Council and Tony in particular for putting this together. And I find myself here serving a bit of as a bridge between our friends as attorneys general and those that are serving in Congress as I seek to go back to Texas. But many of you may not know I served as the first assistant attorney general about a decade ago in Texas. And I bring that up because during that time when I was serving as first assistant working with Attorney General Paxton, we were dealing with the grotesque Planned Parenthood procedures that had come to light with the videos that had come to our attention. And my office and the office that we worked with poured over all of those videos, looking at what we were learning about what was actually happening in Planned Parenthood. Many of the things many of us knew about, but now had a glimpse into firsthand at those grotesque procedures. Now, over the last decade, we have worked tirelessly in the offices of Attorney General, in Congress, as Republicans, to stop those grotesque procedures, to stop taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood or any of the entities that are carrying out these procedures because of how horrible they are for life and for the mothers. But now we find ourselves facing an entirely different grotesque procedure. And that is the shipment of drugs that are causing these young women who we were seeking to protect by getting Planned Parenthood out of this business, that are now dealing with the grotesque reality of losing life in their college dorm room or in an apartment, like all alone, without any of the doctors or the conversations that some of my colleagues have been talking about here, intervening so that these young women know what's happening to their bodies and to the lives that are being every bit as extinguished via a pill, via mail order across state lines, as through the grotesque procedures that we have come to learn about over the years carried out by Planned Parenthood. So I stand here in solidarity with my colleagues in defense of life in recognition that we can celebrate what we've been doing in defunding Planned Parenthood and pulling their power away, but in recognition that we have as many abortions and more occurring by virtue of mail order pills today than we had pre-Dobbs. So we must look ourselves in the mirror and ask whether we're doing what we need to do to secure life. And so we're calling on the administration to act. We're calling on Congress to continue to act. I was proud to introduce legislation all the way back in 2021, the Protect Life on College Campuses Act, to deal with just this issue and say that we should pull funding from colleges that are distributing these pills. We need to stand unified. I stand together with these great patriots in defense of life. And this is something we've got to carry forward if we're going to be serious about protecting every life in America. Thanks, Tony.
Hi, Congressman Marlon Stutzman. I just want to say thanks to Tony and Family Research Council for organizing this event. I know I'm a House member on the Senate side, so I want to stick by the House rules and only take a minute. But anyway, I know this incredible lady back in who lived in Michigan at the time, and she was 17 years old. She was a pastor's daughter, and she found herself in an unexpected pregnancy. She took about 2 months to try to get to an abortion clinic up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and never found her way there. But if she would ever been able to find a pill to be mailed to her, who knows what my mom would have done. So young ladies across the country find themselves in these very difficult circumstances. And I know, and I'm thankful to God that there wasn't a car ride to Kalamazoo, but I'm also very grateful there wasn't a pill that could have been sent through the mail. And I think that's why this is such an important issue, because it is something that can be done so discreetly and silently without really people that can come around a young girl like my grandmother did, and loved on my mom and said, you know what, we're going to get through this. And so that's why this is more than just about, the government here. This is about people in real lives. And we need to make sure that our government is standing for life and for those young people out there, people that find themselves in a very difficult situation. And many times it is easier to ship alcohol, or harder, it's harder to ship alcohol in this country than it is to ship the abortion pill. and that should never be the case. So thank you again to many of those who are here. I appreciate National Association of Christian Lawmakers. I appreciate Pastor Lorenzo Sewell here. We need people in all faith backgrounds to be standing for, in this particular issue, making sure that our government is doing the right thing and that we're surrounding people with love and making sure that we stand for life. So thanks again, Tony.
An amazing story. If you've not heard his complete story, I would encourage you to find it. When someone is criticized for their pro-life position, that is a friend of mine. And Senator Josh Hawley has been criticized for being outspoken in protecting the unborn, and I'm grateful that he has been dogged in questioning Trump administration nominees on mifepristone and has continued to demand safeguards be put in place. Senator Hawley?
Thank you very much, Tony. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks to all of you for being here. Here's the simple fact. There are more abortions committed today in the United States than when Roe versus Wade was the law of the land. Let that sink in. There are more abortions today in the United States than when Roe versus Wade was the law of the land. And why is that? It's because of the chemical abortion drug mifepristone. Nearly 70% of the abortions that are committed in the United States today are committed because of mifepristone. That's just the fact of the matter. And the question is, will anything that the American people do have any effect? Do the American people have any right to protect life in their states, in their localities, nationally? Because what the Biden administration said is no. The Biden administration said, we don't care what your state laws are. We're going to allow abortion doctors, and for that matter, non-doctors. For that matter, we don't know who from overseas to mail in this abortion drug to every single jurisdiction in the United States of America. And when I say overseas, I mean overseas. You can go on right now. Check me. You can log on and click on sites that are not based in the United States. They're hosted in India. They're hosted in other foreign countries. You can click for the pill and get it sent to you, the chemical abortion drug mifepristone. You can get it sent to you with no doctor visit, no oversight, no follow-up, no nothing. Why is that a problem? Well, besides the fact that it is lethal to the baby in almost every single instance, there's also the fact of the matter that fully 11% of women, more than 1 in 10, who take this drug without any sort of doctor aid end up in a serious adverse health event. That's the medical term for in a lot of trouble. In a lot of trouble. Like what? Like hemorrhaging, like sepsis, like life-threatening conditions. And the really egregious thing is the rate of incidence of adverse medical events, the rate of incidence of medical harm to women is 22 times greater than the FDA says on its label. 22 times. So not only is this pill, is this drug available in every state, in every city, in every locality, no matter what the voters of the country say, no matter what the Dobbs opinion says, but also every woman is being lied to when you look at the label that says, oh, it's relatively safe, only 0.5% experience any events. It's not true. It's just not true. And what we're here today to do is to say it's time to stand up and protect women, and it's time to vindicate the principle on which this country is founded, which is that every life has value, that we are all created equal in the image of God, that our rights come from God, not from some government, and we want to vindicate that principle. We want to protect life, and we want to give voice to the American people and their right to protect life, state by state, city by city, and yes, here in the United States Congress. That's what this fight is about. I'm proud that Republicans are standing up for this fight. This is what the party really is founded on. This is a party that came to birth in the fight over whether or not a human being's life could be taken and destroyed. That was slavery in the 1860s. The same moral principle is at issue today. Is a life valuable? Does it have inherent meaning? Does it have inherent worth because of the image of God? Our party is founded on that principle, and we want to vindicate it. We want to protect it. We want to see it made real in the 21st century. That's what we're here to do today. I want to say thank you to these attorneys general behind me who are really fighting the good fight, going to court, standing up for their state's laws, standing up for their voters, standing up for the democratic process, and above all, for life. And thank you, as always, to the Family Research Council and Tony for his terrific leadership on this. I hope that this will be a breakthrough year when it comes to protecting life in the United States of America. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you, Senator. I want to echo the role that the state attorneys generals have played. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, We've heard a lot in the last couple of months about drugs being brought into our country, deadly drugs, and the extraordinary actions that have been taken to keep those drugs out of our country because they take lives. The attorneys general, they're not blowing up boats, but they're trying to keep the mail from carrying in deadly drugs that will take the lives of unborn children. They're on the front lines trying to protect their states, the integrity of state laws, the unborn, and the women who live in those states. And one of those state attorneys general is Dave Yost from Ohio. In 2023, he warned pharmacies not to sell mifepristone in his state, and he has consistently joined other Republican attorneys general in trying to stop the FDA's policy. General?
Thank you, Tony. Senator Hawley has just outlined the theory and the law very well, and I care about those things. And, thank you, Josh. You haven't lost it, even though you're in the Senate. Former Attorney General. But I want to say that this is a lot more than just theory. This is not just theoretical. As recently as the Obama administration, the administration of these drugs, it's a 2-drug protocol. You had to go to the doctor for the first one. Then you had a follow-up for the second one several days later. And then you had a follow-up visit 14 days after that to look for complications that are actually known and on the label. The Obama administration pretty much unilaterally did away with those protections, along with some others, in favor of this mail-order regime. Let me tell you a story that happened in Ohio, my state. A surgical resident, this is a doctor in Toledo, was having an affair with a woman, consensual affair. She became pregnant. She did not want to have an abortion, even though that's what he wanted. He was not ready to become a father or accept the consequences of his own actions. And when she was unwilling to cooperate with his desire not to become a father, he obtained mail-order mifepristone, and while she was sleeping, forced her to put it in her mouth forcibly. When she woke up and began to struggle, he used his superior strength to complete the act. She presented at the ER with symptoms consistent with a miscarriage, with an abortion. I'm pleased to report that we went to the medical board and this man's license is suspended, and that the Lucas County grand jury outside Toledo has indicted him on felony offenses. But if the common sense regime of safeguards that had been in place all the way through the Obama administration had been in place, this woman would never have been assaulted. This horrendous act of violence would never have occurred. Secretary Kennedy, you promised me in April last year that you were going to do a thorough and quick review of this issue. We're coming up on a year. I ask you to expedite this thing and live up to your promise. If you can't announce a change and an update, at least give us an update on your process. Where is this going, and when will we hear something? Thank you.
Thank you, General. Our House members, they have called votes, so they're going to be heading back to the House. But speaking of legislators, state legislators, as a former state legislator that authored a number of pro-life laws, we were repeatedly told you got to worry about the court, navigating the court decisions. Well, the court has ruled that the state legislatures can protect laws. Now, state legislators are trying to navigate a Republican administration. Jason Rapert is a retired state senator from Arkansas, and he's the founder and president of the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. NACL has members, elected officials in all 50 states, and the sanctity of life is among NACL's top priorities. Jason?
Thank you, Tony.
Again, I'm Jason Rayford, and I'm honored to be the founder and president of the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. We appreciate FRC and the leadership of Tony Perkins in bringing this press conference together, and also the leadership of the Senate, especially Senator Graham, and appreciate all of the pro-life groups around the country. This is a moment where we have to stand strong. I will not plow the same ground that's already been plowed here with the statistics. You know the statistics. The reality is that state legislators, local officials, and federal officials around the country have worked decades to save life in this country. As Tony Perkins stated, the NACL, one of the very first issues that we took a stand on was the right to life. I personally carried the very first heartbeat bill that was passed in the country, March the 6th, 2013, in the state of Arkansas. I later carried the abortion trigger ban bill in 2019 that was triggered in 22 when the Dobbs decision was announced. In South Carolina, Senator Graham's home state, Representative John McCravey is our chair in South Carolina. He carried the heartbeat bill there. Our friends from Texas, Senator Brian Hughes carried that successful Texas heartbeat bill. State after state has taken a stand to say that we want to protect babies' lives. In Arkansas, we have a law in place that says there's no legal abortion except to save the life of a mother in a medical emergency. Guess what? The fact that the administration is not addressing mifepristone and allowing the continual, what I call drug trafficking of mifepristone across state lines, it's undermining the will of the Arkansas people and the state legislatures to protect life. This is something that must be addressed. Again, I want you to know that the NACL, through our members in all 50 states, the 41 states where we have elected officials that serve as state chairs, Congressman Stutzman, which is our U.S. House chair, we are committed to continue to fight this battle to protect life. I leave you with a real thought here, just to put a pinpoint on what this means. I'm a father of 2 daughters. I'm about to have my first grandson in March. And I want to tell you something. The idea that elected officials and health officials would allow mifepristone to be trafficked through the mail, and a teenage mother somewhere takes a pill and she is alone and she begins to have complications and it's going to end up in 2 ways. If she survives that and her complications don't hurt her, which, by the way, we've seen the statistics, it hurts many young women, even many deaths. What we do know is that fetal remains are being flushed down toilets going into water systems all over the United States of America. Why are we not addressing this? Why are we not respecting laws in the states that have laws to protect the dispensing of fetal remains? We even have laws on the book that talks about abuses of corpse. Why are we allowing a system that literally would say, you just do whatever you want to do with the remains of a little baby that has life? The NACL believes that the Bible's clear. It says when you choose life, you will be blessed. When you choose death, you will be cursed. That's in Deuteronomy. And I can assure you right now that we across the country, many pro-life people that supported President Donald Trump and this administration, we need you to hear our voice. We want you to respect the laws of the states and to make a decision to take mifepristone off the table as a mail-order drug. We're committed to this battle, and we thank you, Tony, for what you've done to stand here today.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you coming today. Victoria Cobb is the president of the Family Foundation of Virginia, and she's a board member of the Family Policy Alliance, which is an important organization. It's an alliance of 40 state organizations collectively representing over 50,000 churches and millions of Christian voters around the country. And again, this is an issue that is at the center of the mission of the Family Policy Alliance. Victoria?
Thank you so much, Tony, for putting this together, and to our senators and House members that are standing for this. We are so grateful. This isn't about ideology. It's not about statistics. It's about saving lives. Amber Thurman, Ayola Dixon, and these are women who have died from sepsis and other complications from this chemical abortion pill that would not have died if the FDA were functioning under the Biden-era regime around these drugs, and we're asking to have that returned, to have President Trump and his administration be able to be part of going back to a situation before we had an overly zealous pro-abortion administration rush things through without safety in mind. Specifically, I also want to mention another name, Leanna Davies. This is a woman who didn't die, but thank heavens, because her boyfriend spiked her hot chocolate with a chemical abortion drug. That can't happen unless it is easily available and legally attainable by a male who isn't even the patient. This is the kind of safety situation that we have going on because they have removed the doctor contact ahead of time, they've put it through the mail, and things like ultrasounds are not happening. As a woman who thankfully survived an undetected ectopic pregnancy, I can tell you what would have happened if I had decided to take an abortion drug. When you think that that pregnancy has been terminated, but it has not, and that pregnancy, that child exists outside of your uterus, your fallopian tube will burst and you will die. Without those kind of cautions, those kind of evaluations for women before they simply take a pill they're being told is like Tylenol. And I just want to remind folks of some of what Senator Hawley said. So if you remember, the mifepristone own labeling says 3 to 5% complications. But now we've had time from 2017 to 2023. We have gone through the insurance data that tells us about each of the situations where these chemical abortions have been taken. And out of over 800,000 pieces of information around women who have taken this chemical abortion, we had 94,000 end up with severe complications. He mentioned it. That's more than 1 in 10. And that is a 22% inaccuracy that is on that label. We've got to tell women the truth. They deserve the truth when they make these kind of decisions. They might make a decision I might not make, but they deserve the truth for their own safety. And I just want to get to the states' rights issue that is mentioned here. And I want to come from a perspective that's a little bit different. So as Tony mentioned, the Family Policy Alliance represents organizations in all the states. So of course there's red states and blue states, different ideologies around human life. I come from Virginia. Our state, as we sit here in this moment, our legislature is pushing forward a state constitutional amendment. And in that constitutional amendment, which will go to our people in November, and should they agree to this, we actually are putting words into our Constitution that protect medical providers in case another state, like you heard these attorney generals, want to interfere and say, hey, these medical providers are actually from Virginia. They want to ship drugs into other states. They want to make Virginia a safe haven where they can illegally practice medicine in other states. That's what it is when you ship a drug into a state that says this is not legal. And we're putting it into our Constitution to protect them. It's not fair that states that are more safety-minded and choose to protect women and unborn babies could be harmed by the Constitution of Virginia. I'm devastated that's the direction our Commonwealth is going, and we're going to do everything we can to stop that. But that is why it is wrong to have mail-ordered drugs and to not abide by states' rights. Dobbs was clear. When we overturned Roe, the court said this is a state's issue. No matter how you feel about that, that is what is the current makeup of the legal situation. And so states that want to protect human lives need to be able to do that. So we're asking the FDA to speed up this review. Let's go back to physician contact with a woman and evaluation before she considers taking a chemical abortion drug that is 22% more harmful than the labels say. Let's go back to ultrasounds, and let's get rid of mail-ordered drugs that are harming women across our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And as you can see, most of our members have left. If you have any questions for Lindsey Graham, I'll take those and tweet them out. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sangeeta, and I want to ask you, next week is the March for Life. There's a lot of activity on the Hill, off the Hill, just related to pro-life issues ahead of that. And if there are some of the things that you guys outlined today, we're hoping kind of like align with that, and next week, I don't know what chamber's in next week, but
Well, it would be great to get an announcement that the FDA has completed their review and they've acknowledged the dangers of mifepristone and they are revising the REMS. There's no indication that that's coming. Would be happy to see that. I think the message here today, and the reason we're doing this press conference, and you're hearing from House members, Senate members, and you're hearing from state legislators or state attorneys general and those representing state lawmakers and organizations in the states, is really to drive home the issue of the states. And this is coming from conservative states, states that should be aligned with this administration. And if there are those that don't care about the life issue, they should care about the politics of this. This is going to be a political problem for those who have sold out the pro-life movement.
Sort of related to mifepristone, what is your reaction to the Trump administration restoring the Planned Parenthood funding last month that it withheld?
There appears to be more to that story than what we're seeing in the press, and that there is some, and I'm waiting to pass judgment on that, is that there is some legal maneuvering there that would put the administration in a stronger position.
I wanted to ask what your reaction was. There was an analysis published this week that was studying 5,000 pages of agency documents on mifepristone over 12 years, and it claimed that agency leaders always act without bias and follow evidence-based recommendations from scientists on mifepristone. What's your thoughts around that?
Well, I've not seen that, so I really can't comment on that. But what I can comment on are the adverse health effects that we've seen. And here's one of the big problems we have, not just on mifepristone, but on abortion in general, is that the lack of consistent reporting. And it's interesting to me, this is something we've tried for years to try to get systematic reporting on this so that decisions can be informed with the best information, and we've been fought on that because I think the reason is they don't want the facts on this, the adverse effects, the number of abortions, and how they're being performed.
You just mentioned the politics surrounding mifepristone. FDA Commissioner McCarthy seems to have potentially made a political calculation around releasing the safety review before the midterm elections. It seems like he does not want to do that. I'm wondering if you could respond to that a little bit and then talk about whether or not you expect FDA to now release that ahead of the midterms, given the response.
Yeah, I've heard him make that statement. I think this is a decision that's being driven by the White House. And I think that we've seen almost every Biden-era policy reversed like this. This policy could be changed overnight, and it should be. Politics aside, this is an issue of the sanctity of human life. It is an issue of the promises made to protect the unborn, and it's also a recognition of what Dobbs did. Now, Dobbs, I know that there's a lot of discussion about Dobbs giving this to the right to the states. Dobbs gave the right to the people and their elected representatives, both federal and state. But the states took the initiative, as they always have. And I say this as one who's authored a number of pro-life laws. The states took the initiative, they took the action, and they've been denied the right to see those laws effectively put into place through the undermining of the FDA's policy. That needs to change.
In the hearing earlier this morning, very end of Chairman Cassidy indicated that there was some common ground, he thought, between the Republicans and the Democrats on the committee here. Is this an issue that is subject to the common ground approach?
At the federal level? I mean, I think there's certainly, as you heard from Attorney General Liz Murrell, in many of these states, it is it's a common ground issue. I mean, I can speak from a state of Louisiana. The majority leader, Steve Scalise, and I were elected at the same time and in the deep minority, but we were a pro-life state then with a Democratic governor. So I do think that this is not just a Republican issue. This is a Democratic issue. There, while we don't see a lot of it at the federal level, there remain a number of pro-life Democratic lawmakers as well as Democratic voters that care about this. And I would throw in, while it's unrelated specifically to mifepristone, the issue of forcing taxpayers to fund abortions, which has been protected by Hyde, is clearly a bipartisan issue across the country. Again, maybe not here in Washington, D.C., but the polling shows very clearly that taxpayers do not want to be forced to fund abortion. I have time for one more question. Yes?
I was wondering if you think the Comstock enforcement of the Comstock Act is a good legal strategy to try and curb.
It's a key part of it, absolutely. This is a two-step solution. One is the in-person requirement being reestablished, the medical examinations to ensure that the women their lives are not put at risk, but then also the Comstock, simply enforcing the law as it pertains to Comstock. And again, I use the analogy of the extreme measures that have been taken to keep deadly drugs out of this country. And we have state leaders that want to keep the deadly drugs out of their states. Maybe if these abortion pills were coming by boat, the administration would change its tactics. But it's time to change this. It's time to respect the rights of the states, and it's time to end death by mail. Thank you very much for being here.